Okay guys, I just wanted to go over something I've been working on today. It took me a few hours to do. This is the throttle cable here that I got out of the 89 donor car. That's the throttle cable bracket that mounted on the EGR. Well, I got rid of the EGR spacer, and what I did is I went down to a smaller EGR right here, this black thing, which is right here. So what that did is that pushed my throttle body back inboard about, probably an inch and a half. So when I got this bracket and I went to put this bracket on here, which I've already got the screws in, but it basically goes like that. The problem I was having is the bottom of this bracket right here where my finger's pointing was actually hitting on the valve cover right here. So what I had to do is I got in here and I slowly ground that away with my Dremel. I did break through a little bit on it. You can see that hole. I'm really not too worried about it, because what my other option was is to actually cut a groove in it here. So I was able to thin this out enough, bend it up. I got a little bit of hole, but the structural integrity of this bracket is still good. Now this is actually where right here, this is where the throttle cable will go through. On this end here, goes right here, will go in here, and this is where my TV cable will go. So I was able to utilize this bracket. Also, what some people are running into when they do these swaps, if you don't do what I did, you're going to have this giant tube that's right here. And this tube basically goes underneath the throttle body. It screws in back here where that sensor is, runs over here, and that's where your heater lines went. I bypassed that with this right here. You can see right there. I bypassed that right there so I could move that sensor towards the front of the car a little bit, because I didn't want this giant tube in there. I wanted to have a little bit more room underneath the throttle body and the upper intake. So if you run into that problem, if you're going to actually keep this giant tube here, which it actually sits in the car like this underneath that throttle body, then what you also might have to do with that bracket is you might have to take this bracket and cut part of this back out right here, so when it's sitting in there and it's mounted, it won't hit that tube. Because when you have that tube in that I just threw over here, when you have that tube in sitting like that, and you've now pushed that, removing that EGR spacer, so when you try to get this bracket in here, you're going to be hitting it somewhere like around in here, or probably like up in here. So the only way you're going to be able to get around that is to trim this. And then also, like I said, you might have this problem here like I did, where I had ended up grinding it away, kind of curved it a little bit. But I've got my bracket, I about got it cleaned up now, so I'll be able to prime it and paint it and be good to go. On this bottom side here, I literally have a paper's clearance. That's the paper I use. So when that's sitting like that, I can move that paper between this bracket and the valve cover itself. So when I go to paint this, I'm going to put one light coat of primer on there, and then I'm probably going to use some of my rust inhibitor paint and just put another light coat on there, and then I'm going to call the bottom of that done. The rest of it I can paint freely, but I don't want to build up a whole lot of paint here on the bottom. Otherwise, when I put it on there, it's just going to rub on the valve cover, and that's where we're at. So I just thought that was a little information that y'all could use. Like I said, I took my time with this just because I didn't want to ruin this bracket. It's the donor car I had. It's really saved me a lot of money, because this bracket alone would probably cost $20-$30. This cable here, another $50. So When I got that donor car, I stripped everything I could off of it, and if I don't use it, I can get rid of it in the future. But right now, I'm really saving myself a lot of cash. So I just thought you all might like that, and have a good night.